Mile 26 of the Chicago Marathon. My legs were screaming. Every muscle fiber burned like it was tearing apart. My lungs felt like they were filled with glass. Sweat poured into my eyes, blurring the crowd into a watercolor painting of noise and color. 0.2 miles left. Just 0.2 miles between me and something 3 neurologists, 2 orthopedic surgeons, and 4 physical therapists had told me was physically impossible. I could see the finish line ahead. The clock reading 5 hours 47 minutes and 23 seconds. Nearly 6 hours of running. Most people finished marathons in 4. But most people hadn't spent 18 months learning to walk again. Most people's legs actually worked the way legs were supposed to. A woman next to me collapsed. Medical team rushed over. Kept moving. One foot in front of the other. The only thing I knew how to do anymore. That's when I saw him in the crowd. Of us. My neurologist. The man who'd sat across from me 5 years ago in a hospital room and said, with absolute clinical certainty, "Kieran, you need to understand. The damage to your spinal cord is permanent. You have a 0% chance of ever walking again. I need you to accept that so we can focus on adapting to your new reality." 0%. He was holding a sign. I couldn't read it through my tears and exhaustion, but I could see him. Watching. Witnessing. And I thought about the person I'd been 5 years ago. Lying in that hospital bed. Believing him. Ready to give up on everything. What that person didn't know, what Dr. Voss didn't know, was that 0% isn't the same as impossible. Just means no one's done it yet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the night everything ended and, without knowing it, everything began. If you believe the human body is capable of more than doctors can predict, hit that subscribe button. Because this is about what happens when you refuse to accept limitations just because someone in authority said they were absolute. My name is Kieran Nash. I'm 32 years old. And 5 years ago, I died for 90 seconds on the side of Interstate 94. It was January 14th, Thursday night. I was driving home from my sister's place in the suburbs. 27 years old, healthy, training for my first half marathon, thinking about the promotion I'd just gotten at work. Normal. Everything was completely normal. Then headlights filled my rearview mirror. Too bright. Too fast. Swerving. I had maybe 2 seconds to think drunk driver before the impact. The crash investigators said he was going 70 in a 45 zone. Hit me from behind, sent my car spinning into the median barrier. The impact crushed the driver's side, shattered my spine at T12, severed nerves that control everything below my waist. I don't remember the crash itself. Just the before and the after. Nothing in between. The after started in the ICU at Northwestern Memorial. Tubes everywhere. Machines breathing for me. Pain that felt like my entire body was on fire and frozen simultaneously. And the complete, terrifying absence of feeling in my legs. Could see them. See the blanket covering them. See the monitors tracking vitals. But I couldn't feel them. Couldn't move them. They were just there, attached to me but not part of me anymore. The first doctor who spoke to me was Dr. Sarah Voss. Neurologist. 40-something, competent, with a bedside manner that confused clinical detachment with compassion. "Kieran, you've sustained a significant spinal cord injury at the T12 vertebra. The impact caused swelling and damage to the nerve pathways that control motor function and sensation below that point." I was still on heavy painkillers. The words felt like they were coming through water. What does that mean? It means you're paralyzed from approximately the waist down. We'll know more as the swelling decreases, but based on the imaging and your current presentation, the prognosis is not favorable for recovery. Not favorable means what? A pause. I'd learned to hate that pause. It meant she was deciding how much truth to deliver. It means you'll likely be using a wheelchair permanently. I'm sorry. I was in the ICU for 3 weeks. They moved me to a rehabilitation facility after that. Taught me how to transfer from bed to chair, how to navigate doorways, how to live in a body that only worked halfway. My parents visited every day. My sister Rowan brought books, tried to make me laugh. My best friend Ren showed up with terrible jokes and unwavering optimism that made me want to scream. Everyone was so determined to help me accept my new normal. But I couldn't accept it. Every morning I'd wake up and try to move my toes. Nothing. Try to feel the sheets against my legs. Nothing. Just absence where sensation used to be. 6 weeks after the accident, Dr. Voss sat me down for what she called a realistic conversation about expectations. Your MRI shows significant permanent damage. The swelling has decreased, and we're not seeing the nerve recovery we'd hope for in cases where function returns. At this point, I need to be clear with you. You have a 0% chance of regaining the ability to walk. Continuing to hope for that outcome is only going to make your adjustment harder. 0%. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen thousands of spinal cord injuries. With this level of damage, this amount of time with no improvement, recovery doesn't happen. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to help you accept reality so you can build a life within it. That night, I cried until I couldn't breathe. Not because I was sad. 'Cause I was furious. 27 years old, and some drunk driver had decided my life was over. And now a doctor was telling me to accept it. To stop fighting. To give up. The next 4 months were the darkest of my life. I went through the motions of rehabilitation. Learned to live in a wheelchair. Got good at transfers, at navigating my apartment, at pretending I was adjusting. But inside I was dying. Not physically. Worse, I was disappearing. Becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone whose entire existence revolved around what I couldn't do anymore. I stopped answering Ren's calls. Avoided my family. Spent days staring at walls, wondering what the point was. Then something happened that I didn't expect. I met Jonah. He was in the rehabilitation facility's gym, working with a physical therapist named Tamsin. Similar injury to mine, car accident, paralyzed from the waist down. But he'd been injured 3 years earlier. And he was walking. Not well. Crutches, leg braces, every step looked like it took everything he had. But he was walking. Crossed the gym. 10 feet. 20. I watched from my chair, unable to process what I was seeing. After the session, I rolled over to Tamsin. That guy. Una. His injury. How bad? T11 complete. Worse than yours, actually. But he's walking. He's been working at it for 3 years. Most intense therapy regimen I've ever seen. Still can't walk more than a few hundred feet without exhaustion. Probably never will. But it's possible. She looked at me carefully. For some people, with extensive therapy, if there's any nerve pathway preservation, if they're willing to endure years of brutal work for minimal return, most people choose to adapt rather than fight for such limited recovery. Dr. Voss said 0% chance. Dr. Voss is a neurologist. She deals in probabilities based on typical outcomes. But humans aren't typical. Sometimes we're statistical anomalies. That night I made a decision. If there was even a 1% chance, even a fraction of a percent, I was taking it. The next morning I asked for Tamsin. I want to try. Try what? Whatever Jonah is doing. I want to walk again. She studied me for a long moment. Kieran, I need to be honest. The odds are not good. You'll spend years in pain, working harder than you've ever worked. Probably for nothing. You might get sensation back. Maybe some movement. But walking independently, that's a long shot at best. I don't care about odds. I care about possible. Why? Because I died on that highway for 90 seconds. And when they brought me back, I didn't come back to spend the rest of my life sitting down. I came back to finish what I started. What did you start? Living. Moving. Running. Being more than what happened to me. She nodded slowly. Okay. But we do this my way. You follow the program exactly. No shortcuts. No giving up when it gets unbearable, and it will get unbearable. Deal. Deal. The first 6 months were torture. Electrical stimulation therapy. Aquatic therapy. Task-specific training. Hours every day of forcing my body to remember things it had forgotten. Most days nothing happened. I'd spend an hour trying to wiggle my big toe and get nothing. Just dead weight at the end of my leg. But 3 months in, I felt something. Twitch. In my left calf. So small I thought I imagined it. Did you see that? I asked Tamsin. I saw it. That's not nothing, right? That's definitely not nothing. It was the first sign that some neural pathways might be reconnecting. Not enough for function, but enough for hope. Over the next 3 months I got more twitches. Tiny movements in my ankles. The ability to flex my left knee slightly. Nothing coordinated. Nothing useful. But something. At month 9, Tamsin said the words I'd been desperate to hear. Let's try standing. They strapped me into a harness attached to the ceiling. Safety measure in case I collapsed. Positioned my feet on the ground. Put my hands on parallel bars. On 3, try to push yourself up. We're supporting most of your weight, but try to engage your legs. 1, 2, 3. Pushed. Felt my arms doing most of the work. Felt nothing from my legs for a long, terrible moment. Then something engaged. Some muscle deep in my hip. My right leg straightened slightly. My left followed. I was upright. 90% held by the harness. But 10% was me. I lasted 8 seconds before my legs gave out. I cried in the harness while Tamsin lowered me back to the chair. 8 seconds, she said quietly. That's 8 seconds more than Dr. Voss thought possible. We worked up to 10 seconds, then 20, then a full minute. Each session my legs remembered a little more. Figured out how to hold weight, how to balance, how to be legs again. At month 12 I took my first step. I was in the harness, holding the parallel bars, every muscle shaking with effort. Tamsin was beside me. Shift your weight to your left leg. Good. Now try to lift your right foot. Just a little. Tried. Nothing happened. I tried again. Still nothing. Third time something fired. My right foot lifted half an inch off the ground. Moved forward 2 inches. Touched back down. 1 step. Collapsed immediately after. But I'd done it. Moved forward under my own power for the first time in a year. The next 6 months were about learning to do it again. And again. And again. Building the strength, the coordination, the neural pathways that had been severed. At 18 months post-accident, I walked 10 feet without the harness. With the parallel bars for support, but unassisted by equipment. Dr. Voss came to see me that day. Someone from the rehab facility had called her. She watched me walk those 10 feet. I could see her processing, trying to reconcile what she was seeing with what should be medically possible. This is remarkable, she said finally. Absolutely remarkable. I've never seen recovery at this level from your injury severity. You told me 0%. Based on typical outcomes, that was accurate. But I'm not typical. No, you're not. Pause. I apologize for being so definitive. I should have left room for anomalous outcomes. It wasn't enough, but it was something. 2 years post-accident, I walked without assistance. Slowly, awkwardly, but independently. 3 years I could walk a mile. Took me 40 minutes and I was exhausted after, but I could do it. At 4 years, Ren suggested something insane. You should run a marathon. We were at a coffee shop. I'd walked there from my apartment. 3 blocks. A journey that used to take 3 minutes now took 25. But I'd walked it. I can barely walk a mile without needing to rest. So, you couldn't walk at all 2 years ago. Train for a year. See what happens. Ren, I don't think you understand. Running requires coordination my body might never fully recover. Walking is hard enough. You thought walking was impossible. And you did it. So maybe impossible just means no one's tried hard enough yet. I trained for 13 months. Started with walk/jog intervals. 30 seconds of jogging, 5 minutes of walking. The jogging was horrible. Uncoordinated, painful, my legs not quite remembering the pattern. But slowly it got less horrible. I built up to 5-minute jog intervals. Then 10. Then continuous jogging for a mile. Took me 19 minutes to jog a single mile. Most people walk faster than that. But I was jogging. Actually jogging. At month 8 of training I ran 3 miles without stopping. Took me 57 minutes. Every muscle was screaming. But I did it. A month 10 I ran 8 miles. The training plan called for building up to 20 before race day. I made it to 17 before my body said no more. Race day came anyway. January 14th. 5 years exactly from the accident. I'd registered for the Chicago Marathon under Ren's relentless pressure, and my own desperate hope that I could actually finish. Standing at the start line, surrounded by thousands of runners who had no idea what it had taken me to get there, I felt like an imposter. These people trained for months. I'd trained for years. Just to have the privilege of attempting what they took for granted. The gun went off. The crowd surged forward. I started jogging. Slowly. So slowly that elderly speed walkers passed me. But I was moving. Mile 5 my right leg started cramping. I slowed to a walk. Stretched. Kept moving. Mile 10 both legs were on fire. I wanted to stop. Didn't. Mile 13 the halfway point. 3 hours in. I'd already been moving for 3 hours and had 13 more to go. Most people would have finished the entire race in my halfway time. Mile 17 I fell. Just collapsed. Legs gave out. Medical tent volunteers rushed over. I'm fine. Just need a minute. Sir, maybe you should call it. You've already accomplished so much. I didn't come here to quit at 17 miles. Got up. Started walking. Eventually started jogging again. Mile 20 I hit the wall. The point where your body runs out of easy fuel and starts burning everything else. Feels like dying. Kept moving. Mile 23, I saw the 3-hour pacer group passing me. I'd been running for nearly 6 hours. My legs barely worked. Each step was negotiated between my brain and muscles that wanted to quit. But I was still moving. Mile 26. That's when I saw Dr. Voss in the crowd, holding a sign. I got close enough to read it. Statistical anomalies are my favorite patients. She was crying. Actually crying. Watching me run past her toward a finish line she'd told me I'd never reach. I crossed the finish line at 5 hours 52 minutes and 17 seconds. Dead last in my age group. Hundreds of people had finished hours before me. The volunteers were already breaking down the course. But I finished. 26.2 miles. On legs that weren't supposed to work. Through pain that would have stopped most people. With determination that 5 years ago, I didn't know I had. They put the finisher's medal around my neck. Heavy. Real. Proof. Ren was there at the finish sobbing. My parents, my sister Rowan all crying. And Tamsin, my physical therapist, who'd spent 3 years teaching my body to remember. You did it, she said. We did it. Dr. Voss found me in the finisher's area. I was sitting on the ground, legs completely done, unable to stand. Kieran, I brought someone to meet you. She gestured to a young man in a wheelchair. Maybe 22, 23. This is Marcus. Car accident 3 months ago. T11 injury. I've been treating him. Marcus looked at me with hollow eyes I recognized. The eyes of someone who'd given up. I told Marcus 0% chance of walking, Dr. Voss continued. But then I remembered I told you the same thing. And I was wrong. So I brought him here today to show him that sometimes, doctors don't know everything. She looked at me. I still believe in statistical probabilities. Most people with your injury don't recover like you did. But I'm adding a disclaimer now. However, statistical anomalies exist. You might be one. I looked at Marcus. It took me 5 years to do this. 5 years of the hardest work I've ever done. Most of those years I made almost no progress. I spent 18 months learning to stand up. 2 years learning to walk badly. And I still walk badly. I'm slow. Have constant pain. My legs don't work right and probably never will. His face fell. Like I was confirming his fears. But, I continued. I just ran 26.2 miles. And 5 years ago I couldn't feel my toes. So yeah, it's hard. Might be impossible. But impossible is just a word doctors use when they don't know what else to say. 6 months later Marcus sent me a video. Him taking 3 steps in parallel bars. shaking, unstable but moving. The message said, "Thanks for showing me that 0% isn't the same as impossible. Last month I ran my second marathon. Finished in 4:47. Over an hour faster. Still slow by normal standards. But my normal has never been typical. I'm not trying to become a professional runner. I'm not trying to prove anything except that the human body is capable of more than we give it credit for. And that when someone tells you something is impossible, what they really mean is it's improbable. But improbable still means possible. And possible is enough to start." If this story resonated with you, if you've been told something is impossible but you're fighting anyway, drop a comment. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to accept limitations just because they came from authority. And remember, 0% doesn't mean impossible. It means no one measured hope in their equation.